Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it is time for the monthly Manifesting Lab members webinar, chosen by you, the members, to give me a hard time in coming up with things to talk about. But today has not been one of those times in figuring out what to talk about. It's more been what not to talk about, because the subject that you lovely members have chosen for this month's webinar is attracting prosperity and abundance. Now, what a tiny, insignificant kind of non-entity subject that is. Absolutely nothing I can talk about there. Wow. You can tell I'm being a little bit ironic there. In order to come up with things to talk about for this webinar, I've had to strip away so much of what I know just to fit it all into a reasonable amount of time. So I'm hoping that what you're going to get today is going to be the absolute core essence of this subject. But before we get started and talk about that a little bit, I want to ask you all a question. And here is this question. Who wants this webinar to be mainly focused on attracting more money? If your answer is yes, please type yes into the questions box or whatever. And if your answer is no, type no. So there's a few answers rolling in here. Anyone else wish to venture an opinion? And Corey is a bit unsure. He thinks this might be a trick question. No, it isn't really. I'm genuinely just trying to find out if you want this webinar mainly focused on attracting more money, or whether it's not important to you. Has anyone else got an answer? Yeah, there's a few more rolling in. Well, I have to tell you that the yeses are winning significantly at the moment, and we have we have almost nobody that said no. There's kind of, yeah, I'm okay with it. Yeah, okay. So the answer is basically yes. Okay, and that's not really a surprise to me, because when people talk about abundance and prosperity, that tends to be the thing that comes up. And having been coaching people privately and still coaching a few people privately, that is what comes up again and again. Abundance is equated with money. So fortunately for me, today's webinar is going to be focused mainly on attracting more money. However, the principles will also apply to other forms of abundance as we get towards the practical implications of what we talk about. So that means then, and it's a good job you didn't say no, otherwise the next screen would be rather pointless. This summary screen here explains what we're going to talk about today. First of all, we are going to talk about the myth of money. Then we're going to talk about emotional wealth, whatever that means. As I said, this is a huge, huge, huge subject. My original plan for this webinar was literally going to be hours and hours long, and I physically would not have been able to do a webinar that long. So it has been stripped down to essential ideas. It's not even going to contain a list of techniques. There is going to be some general guidance at the end, but techniques you can find out just by picking up almost any book. I mean, money is such a huge, huge subject. Abundance is such a huge subject. There are a gazillion techniques out there. I'm going to try today to unearth a few things that you may not have thought about regarding money and abundance. So I'm going to try and go a bit deeper than what you would normally be expecting from just a superficial webinar on a superficial subject. And that's kind of what we do generally in the Manifesting Lab. We like to go a bit deeper. However, if you want techniques, or if you want to get more into something that I've not spoken about, there will be time at the end, and we can talk about any particular aspect that you want to drill down further into. But these two things on the screen here are the two things that I've managed to get, I think, the essence of. The first thing is this idea of the myth of money. So let us go and have a look at this. I have a question for you. And before I sort of come up with this question, the whole purpose of this particular section is just to shake loose a few preconceived ideas. Some of this section will be quite controversial, okay? Some of this is deliberately intended to provoke you a little bit, to make you think about things in a different way than you may have been thinking up to now. And I would suggest to you that if I put ideas to you and you react to them in a strong way, then maybe there's something there for you to consider. So that's coming shortly, but not with this next question, I hope. I hope this next question is quite simple and straightforward, and it's not a trick question. So here is the question. We have a nice picture of a house there. What emotions come up for you when you see this house? Does anyone want to venture a few emotions, or perhaps you have no emotions about it? I don't know. We have boredom, old, too expensive. So, okay, fake. Oh, wow. Okay, power. Okay, no, that's quite different to what I was expecting to come up. Actually, now there's no right or wrong to this. Let me switch to the next question. What emotions come up when you see this home? Anything? So we've got upward, even faker. I'm not going to say who's saying these, by the way. This is just to get the general feel of how people are thinking. Exciting. Oh, exciting's come up. Anyone else want to venture an emotion? Oh, sweet, abundant freedom. Wow. Okay. And ostentatious has come up as well. Okay, and someone said not my type. So that's fine. There's no right or wrong with either of these questions, and I shall tell you why I've shown you these pictures of these houses a little later, if I'm feeling brave enough. So I'm now going to ask you a third question. What emotions come up when you see this number? Here's the number. Would anyone like to venture an emotion that comes up if you feel an emotion comes up? So we have a number of people saying neutral, nothing much. We have one person saying small. And we have a person saying good feelings and power and opportunity. I'm quite now. I'm not going to say who said that, but that's an interesting reaction. The number 47,852 makes me feel power. I have to say, for me personally, I feel nothing much at all. Whereas when I look at homes like I looked at earlier, I feel some kind of emotion. The point I'm making is that numbers are generally emotionally meaningless. Now, that's not coming from a person that hates numbers. I love numbers. I have a degree in university degree in numbers, you could say. But I cannot relate to numbers in an emotional way unless they have a particular meaning. And that's why I've put generally in brackets there. So the meaning might be it's your birthday. So that number that pops up there might mean something to you. Or it might be the 111 effect. You know, that effect where people keep seeing numbers everywhere, like, well, let me draw a few. Like people say they see 111 or 444 everywhere or 555. Now those numbers, yeah, that they have a meaning, but that number, I actually just chose that at random from Google. I don't even remember what that last number was, something like that. I just entered random number into Google and that thing came up. So to me, that had no meaning whatsoever. No emotional meaning, I should say. Now, this is important because isn't manifesting, as you know it to be, something related to emotions? And if it is, and you don't get excited about those numbers, we may have something to consider there. Let me push this idea a little bit further. Let's look at these kinds of numbers. Here we have another number, and it's a number with a symbol on the front of it. Now, as soon as you add a symbol like that to the front of a number, it does have more of a meaning. Now, obviously, you know and I know that means $1,000. Now, let's assume it. If you come from a country that has dollars, let's say it's dollars in your currency. Or if you don't, you can call it your own currency if you want. So if you're in the UK, it'll be £1,000. If you're in France, it's 1,000 francs, whatever. Can you relate to spending $1,000? Now, I'm not going to throw that out to the audience because I assume that most of you can relate to spending $1,000. It has some relevance to you. You may even have spent that much. And when I say spend it, I mean spend it in a day. Okay, so depending on your current financial situation, that may either be a tiny amount to spend in a day, or it may be an unimaginably large amount to spend in a day. But I'm sure you can relate to it at least in a little way at least. But let me now take this question a little bit further. Can you relate to this? If you took that $1,000 spending in a day, how long would you need to spend $1,000 per day in order to spend $1 million? Now, I don't want you to sit there with your calculator and work this out. I want you to intuitively, just let me know, intuitively, how long do you think you would need in order to spend $1 million at the rate of $1,000 per day? Just intuitively, what kind of feel comes up for you? And don't calculate this. Don't try and go to the logical part of your brain and work this out. Would anyone like to venture an idea? Does the idea of long time pop into your head, or short time, or so a few years? Somebody's got the answer absolutely right. Well, good job on that. I'll put you out of your misery because this is quite an easy one. This is quite an easy one. It would take 3 years. Okay? To spend $1 million at the rate of $1,000 per day would take 3 years. Now, I don't know about you, but I can relate to that because I can relate to what 3 years of my life feels like. I can kind of look back over 3 years, and it doesn't mean I'm spending $1,000 a day. No, I can't. I'm not saying that I'm doing that. What I am saying is I can relate to what 3 years feels like. I can relate to what $1,000 in a day feels like. Doesn't mean I'm spending it every day, but I can relate to that. So the idea then of $1 million is something I can kind of relate to. There's an understanding of what that means in a kind of intuitive way. We're not talking about logic here. We are talking about intuitively. Now let me step things up a little bit. Instead of $1 million, now don't calculate this, just intuitively go with it. How long would you need to spend $1,000 per day in order to spend $1 billion? So we've got a few guesses coming up. We've got many lifetimes as one guess, 10 lifetimes another person, 12 years one person. So just have a guess. 300 years another person. As I said, don't work it out. Just throw out what comes up for you feeling wise. Anyone else like to venture an intuitive feeling? I'm not going to read out names, so you don't have to worry about embarrassing yourself. Does anyone else want to venture? Someone else just says just feels longer. Quite possibly, yes. Quite possibly, $1 billion is a bit bigger than $1 million. So here's the answer. At the rate of $1,000 per day, 2,739 years. Right. So I shall pause for a second while everyone pulls themselves back off the floor. Why am I telling you this? Hopefully, from the previous slide, you can almost get an appreciation, a slight appreciation of what a millionaire means. Someone who has $1 million. But there are people now, in a number of people on this planet right now, who have $1 billion, and not even a billion, multiple billions. Where on earth can you connect emotionally with a figure that big? It's almost beyond the comprehension. You know, I can just about 3 years, yes, I can get an appreciation of $1,000 per day. I can get an appreciation of 2,739 years. No, I don't connect with that at all. And yet there's people who have this amount of money. And I'm sure you could probably name a few, because there are a few famous ones. And surprisingly enough, there are probably quite a few who keep a low profile if they can. Now, doesn't this kind of give you a little bit of a feeling as to why it's hard to manifest money? Why it is that when you start asking in your what and why statements and your vibrational requests for specific amounts of money, is it hardly surprising that you can't connect with those numbers? Because firstly, the numbers are emotionless, and then these figures are almost meaningless. So I just want to leave you with that thought just for a little while, and we'll come back to this thought. And I want to change the subject just a little bit and sort of reconnect with these ideas a bit later.